they wanted us to be Capitals in Lincoln Park. That's who we want you to be, or else we're done. And they wanted me to fire Mike and fire Servo and get a new band and get another singer and basically just rip off Lincoln Park. I mean, that was their idea for us live.
Wow.
And I wasn't into doing that, you know?
Yeah.
Mike's been in the band since '96, and I'm like, this guy's been with me for 10 years. I am not going to, like, cut him off and go have a career, because he's my friend. He's, you know,
right.
my bro, you know?
Yeah.
So after a long, you know, sort of painful journey, I finally just walked away from that. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm totally done. I can't deal with any of this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like it. I don't want to do it. I don't, you know, my goals at that point were just like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like,
Right.
I had lost my artistically.
Yeah.
And just felt like it was time to pull the plug. So I literally quit. I broke and I said, I'm done. I put all my gear in storage. I was like, that's it. And then, you know, a couple years later, I started to get that little itch again, you know.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if I get my stuff out of storage, I can just mess around, you know, just make some electronic stuff for myself. Well, of course, that spiraled into, like, I got a call from Metropolis one time. Dave was like, so what are you up to these days? And I was like, not much, you know. I'm just kind of, like, messing around. And he's like, well, we'd love to pick you up if you're ever interested, you know. So I had that little seed in my head, you know.
Yeah.
So it just slowly kind of like all of a sudden, before I knew it, I had a record and I signed with Metropolis. And then naturally after that, I was like, well, maybe we can go do some shows. And then that turned into a tour. And, you know, so that's the whole reason for that tour being called the Denial Highway Tour.
Right.
Was because a friend of mine, Jared from ChemLab, he always used to say that, you know, people who do music on an underground level are denial junkies.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like we're addicted to, like, fooling ourselves into believing we can continue to sustain what we're doing.
Right.
So,
right. Or
so
believe.
that whole thing was like, you know, hey, let's get back out on the Denial Highway and try to get, you know, do this again. And
Right.
you know, so I'm giving you a very long answer, and I apologize for that, but
That's
you know,
all right.
It's a long story.
Right, yeah, it is, and it's nice to hear it from your perspective and to hear, you know, I've read about it. I mean, I own 2 versions of Super Cool Nothing. I have the first version that was released on Mercury, and then I have the second version that you re-released with the bonus CD in it.
Yeah.
You know, and so I've been there with you the whole time since I picked up, you know, the first record. Well,
yeah, we had no access to the Mercury release at all. Like, we couldn't even order copies.
Oh man.
So, like, that's why we reprinted it. You know, we're like, we want to be able to sell it to the fans that we have. And I think we blew, you know, we burned a lot of fans that we had too, because we weren't properly working our stuff. You know, it was,
right.
We just disappeared for 3 years trying to, like, you know, get all this stuff together, and it didn't work. And then we went out and did KMFDM and got all this momentum back, and then we disappeared for another year, and it was just like, this is all messed up. So yes, it was a very tumultuous time, you know. I mean, we were in a great position in '96 after Letdown Crush came out. We had toured for 9 months straight, and
yeah.
you know, things were abuzz for 16 Volt. We'd gotten like number 2. Well, by '96, we had gotten like number 1 spot and the number 2 spot in the Rolling Stone alternative charts. You know, things were doing really, really good for us.
Right.
So we had a lot to build off of, and we just kind of, it just got eaten up, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like you don't have fans either, because you have some big name people in the industry that really are a fan of you. I know that Tommy Lee has spoke highly of 16 Volt in the past.
Yeah, Tommy's like, you know, he's a huge 16 Volt fan. As a matter of fact, we had a song off of Super Cool Nothing called "I Fail Truth."
Mm-hmm.
And when Methods of Mayhem played Ozfest, that was their closing song in their set. He covered 16 Volt.
Cool.
So, which in one way is cool, but in another way was incredibly, like, troubling to see, you know?
Yeah.
So here's Tommy Lee. He takes our song, and he's playing it, and there's 50,000 kids going nuts.
Right.
And it's like, I'm going home after this to, like, do my dishes and, you know,
yeah.
get up and go to work in the morning. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I totally understand.
The injustice of it all was just, it just became crazy.
Yeah.
So with Full Black Habit, really what that was about was, like, you know, in a one way, it's a very tongue-in-cheek title. It's a return to the dark habits I seem to keep getting myself into with this music stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just going back into it. Here I go again, you know? I'm going back to all the stuff that's always disappointed me on some level. I mean, it's a very tongue-in-cheek way of putting it, but the truth of it is that it doesn't really disappoint me. And I needed to go through all that stuff and, like, come out of it at the end as like, and I hate using this term because it seems so pretentious, but as like an artist, to like find myself again, you know?
Yep.
Because I just lost what I was trying to do, and
right.
so to break away from it and go through all that shit, and I think at the end of the day, like, you know, it's just made us stronger people,
right.
but I think it's also made us more resilient, like, as artists, and made us more determined to, like, do cool stuff and sort of, like, do it for ourselves, though. You know
right.
what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and do it for the small group of fans that we have. And, like, we have no intentions of doing anything, you know, bigger than what we're doing. We have no goals of, like, I don't want to be on a major label. I'm super happy with Metropolis. We just re-signed with them. So we have another few records that we're doing with them.
Good.
And, I mean, you know, so I feel like the train is totally back on the rails.
Good.
And, you know, everything's going really good. Full Black Habit was a great process, and I think it's one of the best. For me, it's probably my three favorite records are Let Them Crush, you know, Super Cool Nothing, and Full Black Habit. And I mean, that record for me was just a great process, and it was also the first time that I sort of took the reins as producer and mixer and all that stuff. So.
Right. Yeah. I really enjoy it, but again, I'm biased. I don't think you've put out a bad record yet. Wisdom's a little hard for me to listen to sometimes because it sounds rather dated, but everything beyond Wisdom and up, I can listen to it infinitely and still be happy with it and sing along and have fun with it. And it kind of takes you back to where I was the first time I heard it, which, you know, in college and stuff like that was fun, and parties and girls, and now I'm married and kids and
and same here, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. That stuff does sound dated a bit now. But, I mean, you know, Bill Kennedy, who's a friend of mine too now, you know, he's like, you know, the funny thing about 16-Volt is, like, the thing that's kind of made us different from a lot of bands in this genre is that we write songs, you know.
Yes.
And that's really, like, the most important thing. So you could take our stuff and, like, play it on acoustic guitar or something, and it's a great pop song or whatever. But I don't like, you know, pop. I like to do all that stuff and layering and, you know,
right.
You know, make it a darker track. But, you know, all those songs are sort of like timeless in a way,
right?
In a songwriting way. Like, you can take Wisdom and it still stands up to, like, you know, half of what's being released today.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I guess to go back to your initial question, of like, or comment, you know, not a lot of people know about 16-Volt, and you're absolutely right. And it's a question that everybody that we've worked with, and even ourselves, have asked, like, if you're totally right, and why is that? And we've never been able to figure it out, you know.
Right.
Why is it? Like, it just doesn't seem to, like, it's almost like, you know, it's just bad luck, almost, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of times with bands, like, the stars just align and they go, and that's it. You know, they don't even have to barely lift a finger, where we've had to, like, fight for every single fan we've got, you know?
Right, yeah.
But the thing is, once you're a fan of the band, you're a fan of the band, you know? So it's kind of cool. We have really hardcore fans.
You do, and that's great. I mean, because those people are going to be with you forever. The other thing that I've always found is that you're very accessible. Even before I'd contacted you on MySpace, you answered questions and stuff like that about guitar tunings and stuff. You've always been accessible. Even you were one of the first bands to really use the internet. You had your website, your forums up years before anybody else was. How did you know that was going to be effective for you?
Well, I mean, the truth is I didn't. A lot of people would probably like spin it the other way and tell you, well, we had this great marketing plan, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I didn't. I had no idea. I mean, I've always just kind of done what came naturally, and I've not apologized for it. So, you know, with the internet and all that kind of stuff, I mean, I just loved it. I mean, and it turned into a career for me, too. That's what I do, you know, as a side job, as I work in interactive space, you know. So, when I first started getting involved online, it was way back with this thing called First Class BBS. So we were actually online before there was before www was around.
Yep.
And this guy Peter Stone, who was in a band a long time ago from San Francisco, he's the guy who started all that stuff. And he, you know, I got involved in that, and just kind of always did it. But I mean, as far as the accessibility thing goes, I mean, for me, we were talking about Wax Trax and how all those people were sort of our heroes, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people in the scene that share that same affinity. And I think there's sort of two camps, you know? You're either on that sort of Wax Trax side, or you were sort of on the Skinny Puppy, you know, EBM side or whatever.
Right.
And a lot of the Wax Trax stuff was Al Jordan. So for me, like, you know, he was probably